And in part, that's because when you build on it, you can charge rent, you can make the property more valuable. Improved property is more valuable than unimproved property. What else have you learned from Monopoly?
It's power shifts.
Power shift.
Power shifts. Yeah, some people tend to have power, other people may not.
Okay, and what does it take to actually get the power?
Risk.
Okay, partly it's risk.
Money.
Money.
More.
Yeah.
Assets.
Assets. Some of it is luck. Where do you land? Right? And what else?
Corruption.
If you own a whole neighborhood, you can double the rent.
Right. The site assembly problem. If you really want to earn the big bucks, you got to get all 3 yellows or all 3 greens. And if somebody is going to hold out, that's the end of your grand plans. What else do you learn from the fact that Baltic is $60 and Boardwalk is $400? What does that tell you? Well, first of all, what does the game of Monopoly refer to? Created in the Depression, and it refers to the actual street pattern of Atlantic City, but an Atlantic City before the era of casinos. So this is the Atlantic City as summer resort before the era of casinos. And of course, one of the important things that you learn from Monopoly is that the land that's closest to the thing you want access to, which in this case would be the beach, the land that's closest to the thing you want access to is more valuable. It costs more. The land that doesn't have that access is going to be cheaper. And I don't think you can see it from here, but I'm guessing that Barry will soon tell us that we're going to take a break. And if you'd like, you can come up during the break, because I have 2 things that I can show you. One is a map of Atlantic City, and indeed, what you find is that Baltic and Mediterranean are the 2 most landlocked places in Atlantic City. And it all makes sense. And then the other thing that you can come up and take a look at is this: what happens when you can't resolve the site assembly problem. This is an example from Washington, D.C., where they have cleared a huge amount of land to build a huge building, but there's one guy with like a 7x10 plot of land, and he's not selling. And so you can see how they have to work around this guy, who apparently camps out on this plot of land every day. So you can take a look at those during the break, and now let me turn it back to Barry.
Well, let me just give you a quick summary, and then we'll take a break. We were really looking, most of this, at the 19th century city. And what Russ was telling us was the key factor in the 19th century city was transportation costs. The structure of the city was determined by transportation costs because transportation was so expensive. Transportation was so expensive. We didn't even talk about labor costs yet. We're still in the 19th century when labor cost was cheap. You had massive immigration. You had huge migration from the South. You had black families coming from the Deep South in Mississippi and Alabama, Arkansas, South Carolina. Many who had been thrown off their land because of the mechanization of agriculture or because of pestilence. And you had large immigration, which kept labor costs as almost insignificant. What really mattered was transportation costs. And so cities were built and designed and structured in order to minimize those costs, to bring those short-run and then long-run average cost curves down. What we're going to learn next week is that as transportation costs decline, as we can move more things at faster speed at lower costs, other costs of production become very, very important. And the one that becomes most important and most costly is labor. And as a result, you see a restructuring of cities, not only domestically but internationally, urban challenges and opportunities in a global context. But what we wanted to do here with those graphs and with the study is to give you an idea that the development of cities, the structure of cities, the layout of cities, and suburbs and exurbs are not random at all. They behave according to a whole series of economic markets. They're affected by technology and the evolution of technology. And then Mary also reminded us, very much affected by public policy. If we had decided on a public policy more on rail transport than the private automobile, cities would have looked very, very different. So what we want to do is use, again, history as we go through to understand how cities structure, restructure, get broken down and rebuilt based on technology, based on costs, and based on public institutions and the decisions that we make politically, or somebody makes politically. And all of those will affect the kinds of places where we live and where we work and where the two are related to each other. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll get back and we'll